Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. As we know, summer is in full swing, and you may be planning a weekend getaway to the Eastern Shore. You may even be dreaming of a once-in-a-lifetime trip abroad. Well, tonight we are talking about how to do it without breaking the bank. We're sitting down with a travel expert and a travel enthusiast for some practical tips for vacationing by yourself or with family and friends. Your best summer ever may be just one smart plan away. My guests are Juanita Busy Bee Britton, founder and owner of Busy Bee International. She has been traveling the world for many, many, many years, and she actually puts on several travel trips every year to Ghana. Also, Twanda Scales. She's been traveling internationally for decades. Ladies, thank you so much for spending some time with us and between your travel schedules. So,
just flew in today. Thank you.
yeah, see, there you go. I want to ask you first what you love most about traveling and how did you get bitten by the traveling bug? Juanita, I'll start with you.
Well, I'll share with you that my my best moments of any given day are sleeping on a flight, just in the clouds, and just I can sleep like a baby in the clouds. But I got my first travel bug early in life at age about 9 years old. I was 8.5, 9 years old, and I went to India on a trip to work in an orphanage, in Mother Teresa's orphanage as a young child, and learned to eat all kinds of food and understand what it is to have unfamiliar flavors in my mouth and how to enjoy them and relax and understand that, there's just, fruit, vegetables, and meat, and with different seasonings, just that simple.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Twanda?
I would say I got bit by the travel bug very young as well. My parents were campers. So we had the RV, the camper, you name it, and we would just travel up and down the East Coast. And for me being a child, it always felt like we were going somewhere far, almost like I was going to California and I was probably just up the street, in Virginia. That's why I always tell my friends, you don't have to break the bank with kids because they have no concept of distance or location at the time until they get older. But I just enjoyed traveling with them. We would make stops along the way, as we were going from one state to the next, visiting relatives or their friends. And I would always have like a childhood friend or a cousin tag along with us. And it really instilled in me the joy and the exploration of what travel brings. And so, of course, later on in life, I don't think it was ironic that I ended up being a travel nurse and traveled extensively in the United States, probably for about 5 years.
Yeah, that'll do it to you. You will, traveling and working,
Yeah.
you will know whether or not you are really positively impacted by the travel bug, or maybe whether or not you just need some bug spray and not be bitten again. But, a lot of people are concerned about their spending. They want to travel, but they don't want to break the bank. Juanita, I know you've got some local and international ideas about how people can travel without going broke. Let's talk first of all about local or regional travel.
Well, of course, you all know this is we're very lucky to be in the DMV, where we have the proximity of Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia right within a 5-mile radius. We can go many, many places. And I like to say on even any given Saturday, a great travel destination is Great Falls. You don't have to start out big and do 2-3 nights in hotels. You do day trips, and then you move to staycation. But certainly, the Shenandoah Valley is unbelievable. It's even cool in the summertime to go, and even you can rent a cabin overnight in the Shenandoah and just have a beautiful time. And just driving on Route 66
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
just with the cool drink and a sandwich and some chips and great music. That's a vacation in itself without a goal of anything other than just enjoying the drive.
You make an interesting point. Skyline Drive, Luray Caverns, that area in Virginia is absolutely wonderful. And I know there, for those who indulge, there are vineyards in Northern Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah, Norlina has a African American vineyard. I want to say it's Seven Springs, right down the street on the line of Virginia and North Carolina, and I think it's called Seven Springs, and it's in Norlina.
Yes, and they actually have a wine. Actually have wine festival there, a concert series there as well.
Yeah, and Twanda lived in Maryland for many years, but is now back home in North Carolina. And so certainly, if you think about it, Virginia, North Carolina, that is still regional enough where you can do some things. But just talking about the DMV, also you've got Maryland, you've got the Eastern Shore as well, Juanita.
Yeah, and we also have these. The District of Columbia actually has some places that I bet just folk have just not gone into. We've got several museum grounds that are vast museum grounds. In fact, just up North Capitol, we've got a place where Abraham Lincoln did some studying there, and it's a place where people have events, and the grounds are beautiful. It's off North Capitol, right there at the soldiers' home, veterans' home, and it's fabulous. You wouldn't even think that you're in DC if you went behind the gate. Mm-hmm. So we just can't imagine that right here in the District of Columbia. We've got some places in Georgetown. Again, many of us in the District of Columbia, we get a little stuck in our communities, and we don't think of that people come from all over the world to do the things in our city to enjoy, and we get a little surprised even if we become a day tourist. I guess most people haven't even went to all of the Smithsonians, and I say this tongue in cheek, we better get to those Smithsonian museums before they're not even open.
And I think you make a really good point, because growing up in the DMV, that was something that we did constantly during the summer. I went with the fellas, and we went to those museums, and the Metro was new. That I'm telling my age, but the Metro was new, and it was free. And Smithsonian museums are free. But the other thing, and I wanted to ask Twanda about this, because when you talk about, for example, international travel, you've done a lot of international traveling just over the past 6 or 7 months. Where have you been?
So I've been to Panama, which you don't hear a lot of people talk about Panama. We went as part of a girls' trip, and I wasn't really thinking that I would enjoy it as much as I did, but it's beautiful. It's a lot of history there. Of course, they have tours of the Panama Canal, and it's a very forward-moving island. They're doing very well in Panama, and it's clean, pristine beaches, and the people, are very nice. And so I've been there, and just towards the end of last year, I went to Vietnam, which a lot of people also don't talk about that. The one thing I did like about Panama, though, is it's a quick flight. I think it took us less than maybe 4 hours to get there. We went to Miami and then straight to Panama. So some people may not like to go far, as far as sitting on a plane for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. Places like Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Aruba, Panama, they're all very close. I would say 4 hours and under flights for a reasonable price.
Mm-hmm. And you were in West Africa too.
And I was in East Africa.
East Africa, thank you.
Yes, I just got back 2 weeks ago from East Africa, and that was my pinnacle bucket list trip.
Wonderful. So, Juanita, when people think about international travel, again, let's just talk about the money. A lot of people see dollar signs just kind of flying away. Can you travel internationally on a budget? And I'm not talking about staying in hostels and hiking through Europe.
Yes.
You know, can you be bougie on a budget with international travel?
Let me tell you how it works. Let me tell you. So what you do, for example, I do go to 15 different countries in Africa, 5 in the South America, and 8 in the rest of the world trips. I've taken people on over 40 destinations. But what I advise people to do is not to be afraid of these stopovers. For example, we could take Turkish Airlines and we're going to Ghana, but we're going to stop 2 days in Istanbul and get a double trip for one ticket price. You can take Emirates, go to Dubai. In fact, that flight puts you in a hotel overnight. You have about 36 hours on the ground if you want to connect with your flight to Ghana and or to 30 other destinations. And that ticket is actually, they've made the prices very comparable to Delta Airlines and United Airlines, although the service is 6-star starting out with an economy ticket. And you can double up your trips. In fact, you can take an airline that goes through Spain. You can take airlines that goes through Morocco. So I always advise, let's go through London. Let's go through Paris on our way and enjoy and have a quick itinerary to do some things for 8 hours or 12 hours right on the ground, because these tickets, you usually leave at night and you arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you have the entire day to enjoy yourself. And then you can do the same on your return.
So let me ask you this before I go to a break in about a minute, because again, when you're talking about money and depending on where you go, how you fly, it may cost a little bit or considerably more. Let's just talk about international. Let's talk about Europe. Flying from the DMV, and say if you want to go for 4 days or 5 days, how much should someone expect to pay? And does it depend on the time of the year? What would you say, Juanita?
2 things. It depends on the time of the year, but more importantly, it depends on when and how early you book your ticket. Mm-hmm. Because airlines want to fill that plane up as early as possible to know that they're going to make that money at that time. So they will take less money to know they're going to make the money. And then when it gets tight, when the demand is high, that's when you have to pay. But when the demand is low and you're 6 months out, you buy your ticket, it's going to be the least price as earlier as just like in local domestic traveling. The earlier you buy your ticket, the better price you get. But then it also depends on the time of year. Certainly going to any parts of the African continent during the holiday season is the premium price, because you have everybody from all over the world going home for the holidays.
Hold that point, because it's interesting that you say the holiday season, and not all holidays here are holidays there. And so I think that's always something we need to pay attention to. So please stay with us. We are going to take a quick break, but don't forget you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Inside segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about summer travel. My guests are Juanita Busy Bee Britton, founder and owner of Busy Bee International, and travel enthusiast Twanda Scales. I want to pick up where we left off before the break when you were talking about the holiday season and traveling in West Africa. When you say the holiday season, whose holiday? American holidays or West African holidays?
Well, when I talk about when the travel industry, when it talks about a holiday, when it says holidays, it generally means Christmas. We're generally talking about Christians all over the world talking about the Christmas season. You don't put into play the 4th of July and that sort of thing because they don't affect what happens internationally. But Christmas, that holiday season all over the world, travel is high for everyone, crisscrossing. So all of the tickets during the holiday season are expensive. And immediately after the holiday, up until New Year's, right after New Year's, they drop almost half the price.
Interesting. Let me ask you this, Twanda, because you have done so much traveling over the years, what have you found to be the best way to plan? Do you use a travel agent? Do you do websites? What do you recommend?
I personally, I'm a single woman. And while I don't mind travel,
we still don't know why that is, but
I don't either.
I know that. That's another show. Yeah, that's a fellas. We'll post their phone number later. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So, of course, as a single female, I prefer to travel with friends or with a group. So I will a lot of times access travel groups. I've traveled with Black Travel Movement. I've traveled with Globus. I've traveled with Sonia. Her maiden name used to be Lowry, but she had a travel group in the DMV area called The World Next Door. And I enjoyed traveling with small groups. And that to me is the easier way because your itinerary is sort of already packaged. Mm-hmm. The excursions are already, built into your itinerary, and it's less legwork and less processes for me to go through when I plan it myself. Mm-hmm. But I don't mind planning trips myself. I mean, there's a lot of tools that you can use from Expedia.com. Of course, they have VRBO and Airbnb as far as getting your accommodations. So that kind of takes a lot of some of the work out of it when you do it yourself. And, I always rely on reviews to just find out, where I'm going to be staying and what excursions I'm doing, which ones are the best price, bang for your buck.
Mm-hmm. So, and to your point, since you have been traveling so much, tell me about the thing that you believe is the most important lesson that you have learned in your travels.
Don't wait.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm 60 years old and I just finally went on my dream trip to East Africa. I have done a lot of traveling, but I would say what I enjoy seeing happening now with social media, we get to see where everybody else is going and we get to see places that maybe we never thought about going. But I'm finding that this new generation, I don't know if they're still the millennials or the Z generation, but I would say the youngins, right? The folks under 30, I'll go as young as 30. They are getting out there. They're exploring outside of their region or their state. and outside the country. And I love seeing it. When I went to East Africa, we went to have dinner in Zanzibar, and all across the restaurant was a young woman, and she was a travel agent, and she had a group of young ladies with her. They were all under 35, and I was happy to see it. I've always been well traveled. I think, just like I said, because my parents were such gypsies, they were travelers, and they just loved to go out beyond our hometown in Eden, North Carolina. But I would tell people traveling is not as expensive as you think it is.
When you say that, what do you mean by that? Because everyone's wallet is different.
There's so many things you can do to make it fit in your budget. If you have good credit, you get yourself a couple of travel credit cards. Now, some of them do have annual fees, but some don't. I had one with the credit union for a long time. It was no annual fee. I paid for everything with it. I accrued lots of points, and you can use those points for everything from hotel to flights. I mean, I don't think it's anything new. A lot of people know about these credit cards, but there's so many, you really need to do some comparisons. And there's a gentleman online, I think he's called the Travel Guy or the Credit Card Guy or something like that. He has a website where you can get comparisons and find out which one best fits your budget. But I would say about 2 times out of the year, I can use my points to pay for my flights. And I'm basically going on the flight for free. The hotels, you get so many points for your hotel. So you may be paying a fraction of the price. And those of us that are over 50, use your AARP, use your veterans benefits. Don't forget to ask, do you make offers for, people who have AARP or veterans or first responders? A lot of companies are giving perks to people who work in public service. What else would I say?
Well, you said a lot. I mean, you've given me a lot to think about, because for those people who are of a certain age,
yes,
they do not think about the kind of benefits, because a lot of them have only been of a certain age for a little bit of time.
Right.
So Juanita, here's something else I want to talk to you also about. My grandfather used to have a saying: know where you're going before you get there. And for some people who want international travel, and I've made this mistake where you assume that you're going to powdery sand and blue-green translucent beaches, only to figure out that you're traveling during the wrong time of the year. Talk to me about the research that you need to do to make sure that where you're going is what you hope it will be.
Well, I tell you, these days with the internet, I use AI a lot now, but believe it or not, Harold, and everyone listening, every bit of information is at your fingertips. You can just ask a question, and once you get the rhythm of guiding yourself to knowing information about a particular location or place or time of year, you will begin to get information in your inbox, right, current information about that location. It's always good to just, like you said, do a little research, but you mainly want to stick to things that are initially familiar. I'm very much do off the beaten path, but it's with experience that I do off the beaten path things. I don't just think of things to do and just say, oh, let's try it. I mean, I've got 30 people with me. I can't do that. I have to know this off the beaten path is going to be an experience. I got to know that it may be the rainy season. And I'm saying, if you want to go during the rainy season, it rain hard in the morning, and then it's sunlight, and then maybe about 2:00 it's going to break out in a rain, but then we're going to have rain for 15 minutes and we keep moving, and it doesn't destroy. So it doesn't destroy a day. In fact, I always look at the positive and say, we need rain, just so you can do a lot of things and be surprised and not be disappointed at the same time. Um, I tend to like to, when I build an itinerary, I help people. I have, I do Zoom calls. We pull ourselves together and we have conversation. I encourage people to go online and just do all types of research on their own so that they can feel they're familiar. And then when they have questions about our location or about our itinerary, I provide as much information as I can. And I want to leave so much to a surprise because I like the overwhelmedness of being surprised and being happy and satisfied when you go somewhere and it's something that you didn't expect. Like Tawana was mentioning, going to Panama and not quite knowing, not even necessarily wanting to go there because it hadn't seemed sexy. Nobody covers to Panama. Nobody says anything about the tourism in Panama or the Black people or the lock. The all we hear about is the canal. And when she got there, she loved it and saw how cultural it was and beautiful and good food. And so there's so much of the world to discover, so much that we don't know or even understand. And with everything at our fingertips, I say do a little research, but don't try to be too anal about everything.
So one of the other things that I think is really important, Twanda, because you have done so much traveling, have you ever traveled alone or been abroad alone when you've done some traveling?
I have. When I went to Italy. Oh shit! Oops.
Eat, drink, and pray, right?
Keep going. I can see you. Go ahead.
Okay. When I went to Italy,
Oh,
technology.
Go ahead,
My apologies to your guest. I went to Rome. I went to Italy solo. And it was a daunting trip, but I just wanted to, I wanted to do it once on my own just to kind of explore and see what it was like. I flew out there by myself, and then I ultimately, about a week later, I met some friends that were in the south of Italy. And to get to them, I had to take a train. Oh. And so, it's not difficult, but it takes planning. And you just have to make sure you let other people know where you're going, before you leave. Give your family and your friends your itinerary. Make sure you sometimes you can sign up with the U.S. Embassy wherever you're going. You can register with them ahead of time, and just make sure you map out everything. I don't go off the grid when I travel abroad. I make sure that I have my international service for my phone, my Wi-Fi, all of that. I don't cut off my cellular data, my roaming, because I want to be able to quickly use my phone if I need to. And I want people to be able to reach out to me. If you're using Airbnb, you might have the host, you may need to call the host. So they're just things that you can do to make yourself feel comfortable. I always kind of get online with everybody on WhatsApp before I go, so they can communicate with me that way. So even though I may be traveling solo, I'm staying in touch digitally with, my family and with my friends, or even maybe on social media. So I don't always post when I'm traveling real time on social media.
Right.
But I find that it's kind of like a sense of comfort when your community also knows, that you're traveling. And sometimes they'll send me tips of places to go. They may have family abroad, contact this person. I remember when I went to St. John's, one of my girlfriends reached out to me on WhatsApp and she was like, I see you're in St. John. Mm-hmm. My friend, close friend has properties there. I reached out to him because I don't meet strangers. I reached out to him. He hit me up on WhatsApp, scooped me up from the hotel, took me to have the best dinner on the island. So, you know, of course, I was sure that that was her friend, but,
right.
You know, you don't want to just like reach out to someone without knowing their face and, you know, making sure that you're contacting the right person. But
And the reason why I ask that is because there have always been, I would say, relatively recently, there are people who travel alone. I have another sister friend who only travels alone, and so in real time, Twanda, when you think about your own personal safety, talk to me about your mindset when it comes to your own personal safety and security when you're traveling.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a firm believer in prayer. So I don't travel with fear. I just travel with confidence. I try not to look like I don't know where I'm going. I have my route mapped out. I might have my phone with my GPS already set up for when I land. And Uber, things like that, it's worldwide. I know there's been a lot of concern about the safety with Uber, but the same goes with traveling with Uber in the States.
That's true.
So you know what I'm saying? So you just have to like keep your head on a swivel. You have to do the homework ahead of time. Like I said, I don't stay at an Airbnb without looking at the reviews and making sure that everyone else who has been there have not felt, you know, like they were in a community that was unsafe or that they could not get in touch with the host or something like that. Those are some of the things that I do when I travel. I always try to make sure I know the culture of where I'm going. Do some research, you know, about where you're visiting. Everybody doesn't, you know, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. And that definitely holds true. You go to somewhere like Dubai or some of the Asian, you know, countries, they have different social standards and different, you know, rules to follow and different laws, things you can and cannot do. Even when I went to East Africa, we went to Dar es Salaam. It's a Muslim country.
That's right.
So the shoulders, they want to see your shoulders covered. They want to see something below, right at the knees. So pack accordingly, and just kind of do a little research before you go to a place you've never been before.
Yeah, absolutely. Twanda makes a really good point, Juanita, about understanding again where you're going before you get there, because a lot of people are going to, you know, Dubai, and what we see on social media is the fun stuff, but what we often don't see is the important stuff, that if you do not know the culture, the customs, the laws, you can get in trouble.
In fact, we've had some recent examples of some of our sister friends going over and not either understanding what and how to behave, and you know, acting out and not understanding that it's a very tight and restrictive culture there. So you're right. And in fact, again, Tawanda mentions doing some research. When you travel with a group, and you build the cohesiveness of a group, the group leader should make sure that all of those types of things are well known, and everyone should you know, follow the lead. I've done a significant amount of traveling on my own. When I used to work with State Department, I used to have assignments and go places, and I'd always go 2 or 3 days before my assignment starts, so I could just get the lay of the land and do some local investigation around where I wanted to live, or kind of folk I want to hang out with, because I'm an indigenous person. I like to be with local people and do local things everywhere I go. So again, it's about research. It's about being respectful, and it's about opening up your spirit to something different.
Yes.
You yeah, you've got to. In fact, I always tell people, you've taken the first step because you want to do and see something different. You've taken the first step. So what we have to do, and I have some exercises that I do with people. I have a couple of that questionnaires that will kind of weed out what I might have to focus in with a person when they're traveling with me
What do you
and with
mean by that?
25 other people.
What do you mean by
Well,
that?
you have some people that that although they might not like different food, they may not know how to keep it to themselves.
Ah, okay.
I may travel with quote unquote, I might have 27 meat eaters and a vegan. I might have 5 vegans. 4 of them are just easy peasy. They will eat whatever they can eat and be happy and know that the world does not revolve around their eating habits. And then you may have one that has to let everyone know they're vegan. They have to be dissatisfied with every meal. And that can happen with a group, or it can happen individually.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this questionnaire that I have, it delves into some personality. It delves into some specifics around what it is you like, don't like. And again, I even have people who don't think that they could travel with groups. And by the time I'm finished with you, we're one big family. In fact, every group that I've ever traveled with, this is all the way back to 1987, where some of us are still connected as a group and remember the trip that we went on. And some of us have traveled together again just because we built a bond in just traveling together.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's some people that I will not, you know how you go in a store and you say, I have the right to refuse doing business with you. There's some people that sometimes they're really not ready to travel. And you can tell by the questions they ask. You can tell by the fear that they may have and not understand that they need to get over some fear that they have, because they could be contagious on themselves and have a increasingly bad time on the trip, and they could actually affect everybody else with that kind of energy. So
That's really interesting. I guess you have to have the right kind of attitude, particularly if you have only traveled within the United States and then you decide to go to the other side of the world, for example, and really not understand that there are some cultural differences.
oh yeah, well the phrase ugly American is true, because ugly Americans are ugly even in America.
Well, then there's that.
And so traveling and being an ugly American is really a devastating situation. And so we refrain with that. I mean, everything from tipping to, opening the door for having chivalry. It's just so many things when it comes to traveling. And I know Tawanda has experienced all of that,
Yeah,
traveling by
I
herself.
was about to ask her. I know you've had some wonderful experiences traveling, but what is the worst experience, Twanda, that you've had?
I just had it.
Oh, really? Okay. What happened?
Well, 2. I'll tell you 2. The first one was not my fault. Traveled to Cabo or Cancun. I can't remember which one. And this particular hotel had the atrium set up where it's open in the middle. The beautiful palm trees kind of come up through the rooftop. Gorgeous to look at. But when it rained, the floors right around where you come out of your room, they're tile.
Oh, wow.
And I fell in the stairwell and broke my toe on travel.
I remember that. I do. Wow.
So I had the experience of having a medical issue where you had to get treatment. And this is one other point I'm glad that I mentioned it, because while having travel insurance may add an additional $40-50 to your travel expenses, it is worth it. Either get it through, use your credit card, either, use the company that your travel agent refers you to, or, make sure that your healthcare, your insurance has it. Because one thing about it in Mexico, and I'm sure other countries, they don't care if you were with Red Cross Blue Shield or Atrium. They want cash.
Wow.
They want credit card. So I had to Uber from the hotel. They sent me in a taxi, excuse me.
Yes, they did.
They sent me in a taxi, get to the hotel, pretty much standard routine stuff. It wasn't too, antiquated. They had the typical technology and things like that. I didn't get casted there, thank goodness, but I did have a boot. But I had to pay out of pocket. But when I got home, I had to go through the processes that you go through to get reimbursed through your insurance. And I was reimbursed every dime. So
Okay.
I won't elaborate much more on that, but that was one thing.
And go ahead with the second one real quick.
And the second one, when I went to East Africa, I ended up with traveler's bug, travel diarrhea. And it can happen in any country where we're not used to their food or their water. So I would tell people, always take antibiotics and like a little first aid kit, your little medicines for upset stomach, nausea, whatever your doctor can provide for you. Luckily, I had antibiotics with me and took it. And within 2 days, I was well.
Yes.
So those were my two experiences, but it was not pleasant for the first 48 hours.
That's really, really good information, because I know when I was in Colombia last month for my birthday, and I always keep my container of the medicines that I need, particularly allergy medicine, because you don't know about the flora and the fauna and how it may impact you, and all of the things that you may encounter at home every 6 months, 7 months. Everything could just happen to you as soon as you get off the plane. There are so many other things that we could talk about. I am unfortunately out of time, but Anita, I know. But I have my coconut shirt on.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
I'm definitely ready. But Juanita, Twanda, thank you both so very much. I really appreciate you.
Welcome. I hope you shared some things your fans and followers will be able to find helpful on their travel journeys.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Very, very helpful. Gotta run. I appreciate it. That is the Daily Drum for this Friday, July 11th. Travel happily and safely. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.
Have a great summer.